let's get started. I think we got to start off with Netflix. I think we got to start off with Netflix. Now, Netflix has been a name that I've been wrong on forever, and I was wrong on it again. Even yesterday, right before earnings, I was like, I don't know. It's already at $8.90. Like, it kind of feels like it's up there, right? And then, boy, was I wrong, because in 5 minutes or 15 minutes after I said that, Netflix goes to the moon. Literally, Netflix goes to the moon. I believe it has hit an all-time high officially in the pre-markets. $1,000 a share. Right now, it's at $9.98. It was at $1,006. Ironically, when I was doing the market close last night, I didn't notice that I got a text message, and I had a friend text me, and that friend bought 11,100 shares, 11111, of Netflix at $870. It was not Derek. Before you guys say it was Derek, it was not Derek. Derek is ballsy, but I don't know if he's that ballsy to buy $10 million worth of Netflix at 3:57 p.m. And he was up 1.5 million last night. So, I mean, like, Netflix just absolutely crushed earnings. And why did they crush earnings? Well, it's pretty simple. Street expected 9 million new paid subs. Netflix added 19 million new paid subs. I mean, dude, when you beat from that perspective, it's hard to it's hard to be bearish. And I think there's implications on the rest of the economy that we'll talk about. But in general, I could never have even got bullish enough on Netflix to buy a share or 2 shares of Netflix, because I would have never predicted 19 million paid subs. Like, I could have never predicted that. So for those that did see the potential of that happening, and it kind of makes sense now in hindsight, which it always makes sense in hindsight, but you had Jake Paul, you had Squid Games 2, which Netflix says is on track to be one of their most watched series ever, even though I didn't like Squid Games 2. I thought it wasn't as good as it could have been. And then you had the movie on Christmas that I'm forgetting the name of, The Come Up or something like that. I forgot the name of the movie. And then obviously the NFL football games and WWE Raw live sports. You got all these catalysts that made it obvious in hindsight that people probably would subscribe to Netflix. And it turned out to be true. 19 million paid new subs, 50% net income growth. They did $1.8 billion of profits. Last year, at this time, they did $950 million of profits. And then they're guiding for 33% net income growth, $2.4 billion of profits, not year over year, but quarter over quarter. So that net income number is going to be pretty substantial if you compare it from Q4 2024 to Q1 2025, but still absolutely incredible growth for Netflix. And they did it. They absolutely did it. Shout out to Doug. We had our 2024 stock award show, and we said, "What's your sleeper?" And Doug said Netflix. He thinks he thought the operating margins were going to go up. The operating margins have gone up to now 29%, up from I think 24%. And so Netflix is absolutely flexing on the world in terms of their ability to show massive growth. Now, what does this mean for people that are not in Netflix? I think it means 2 things. Number one, it is very bullish for the consumer. Why is it bullish for the consumer? Because 19 million people have disposable income to pay for Netflix, which means, in my opinion, the consumer's healthy. Now, I know the pushback immediately is going to be, well, not all of those 19 million people are in the United States. A lot of those people are in India. They're paying like $5 a month instead of $15 a month. I get it. But there's 2 pushbacks to that pushback. Number one, Netflix is raising their prices. They announced yesterday. So the most premium tier is going to be $25 a month in the United States, which is insane. I don't think I would ever pay that much for it, but a lot of people love Netflix. And then I think the lower premium tier is going to be $18 a month, which is up a couple bucks. And then the advertising tier, I think it went up $1 or $2. So they're raising prices on their most profitable consumers in North America, that most of them are probably not going to cancel Netflix. So that's going to increase top line revenue growth. And number 2, it doesn't matter if they only got some random person in India or Indonesia to pay a couple bucks a month and they're not getting the full 15. The fact is they got them stuck onto the ecosystem. And the value of just getting them into Netflix. And eventually they're going to do what they did in the United States, which is raise prices across the world once they have the pricing power to feel comfortable to do that in different geographies. And that's what the street's paying for in terms of growth. So from that perspective, I do think it shows that the consumer is healthy. I mean, the fact that people are even willing to say, all right, I'm going to take some of my money outside of my paycheck, even though we are, hearing all these things about credit, et cetera, and put it into a luxurious product like Netflix, almost as if they need to have it. It shows that the content is so good, even if I'm not the biggest fan of Netflix content. And it shows that the original content they're creating is able to be profitably created, which is the problem with Disney Plus, HBO Max, et cetera. They can't profitably create content. Netflix can. That's the difference. Netflix can. Rodney says, I was a subscriber since 2008 when it was only DVDs. I canceled when they cracked down on password sharing and hiked prices around the same time. Yeah, and a lot of people did. But a lot of people also didn't, right? So there were people that were just like angry about the hiking of the prices, getting rid of the password sharing, all that stuff, and they canceled. but the content was good enough, whether it comes to Squid Games 2 or Jake Paul, whatever it is that got people sucked into the ecosystem. And that was able to get them to overcome a lot of the churn that they had 2 quarters ago, which, credit to Netflix, they were able to figure out the content. And if they were able to figure out the content, that is what helped them in a pretty substantial way. 30 and a Wake Up says Netflix is the Coke of entertainment. It's everywhere. I agree. And they're profitable. They're actually able to do it profitably. Now, the second implication on Netflix, even if you are not a shareholder outside of the consumer, Netflix runs on AWS. AWS is their cloud computing partner to be able to handle all the content that is stored on Netflix. So the more people that are watching it, I don't know if that exactly means they're going to pay AWS more money. They probably have deals with AWS and, they have different negotiations. But the point is there's more demand writ large for cloud computing, AKA the hyperscalers. And so from that perspective, I don't think we should see Amazon miss their numbers if Netflix is beating their numbers by such a wide margin, especially when Amazon's only expected to grow, 18 to 20%, whereas Netflix was expected to really put up the numbers when it comes to subscribers, and they beat that by 100%. So look, from that perspective, I think it's just very, very bullish. It is a great way to start off tech earnings, even if you don't own the stock, which I know kind of sucks right now seeing this thing up 15%. Everyone has a little bit of FOMO. But nonetheless, if you weren't in the Netflix story, you weren't in the Netflix story. But what other stories that you're into, it's very important that Netflix kicks off tech earnings in a way that makes the market feel very, very comfortable with the fact that there is more room for margin expansion and PE expansion. And that's what we need in the context of Netflix. Joseph Carlson, goated on this move, dude. He is the only YouTuber I know that was like bullish on this company. Pretty much no one else on this platform on YouTube has been that bullish on Netflix. He was. So credit to him. Credit where credit is due. You call a name and you stay bullish on it for a while. The one person that's got to be feeling sick about this is Bill Ackman. I love Bill Ackman, but dude, again, I said this a couple days ago, but if Bill Ackman had stuck with Netflix when it fell damn near 70% to like 168, I think was the bottom in 2022, and he just doubled down on that. By the way, his average was 300, so it's not like he was down 70%. He was down 50%, which sucks, but everyone was down in 2022. If he had doubled down on that and rode it back to the top, that would have been a goated move on Netflix. But he didn't do it, and that's why investing is hard. Even for the biggest people in the world that have all the information, all the research analysts, investing is hard. So shout out to Netflix, really setting up big tech earnings to go in a good way, and it looks like we're going to be seeing a lot more momentum from that company in the future.